Okay,
Okay.
hello. It's me, Deplorable McAllister, aka Linda Paris, and I'm here with Gene. And Gene has called in to Beyond the Headlines before, and he has a lot of valuable information about this cult or this cabal and what they believe, who they are, their rituals, and we're going to talk about the hierarchy of the false darkness. But Gene has also been on Rick's show, Blessed to Teach, and he's here today. And we've been talking to each other. I've got so many questions for Gene. How are you doing, Gene?
I'm doing really good. Thank you, Linda.
And thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, so as we talked about this, the hierarchy of the false darkness, I think this is important for people to understand. So would you mind explaining?
Yeah, a lot of people, and that's why I'm blessed to teach, they say that Lucifer is just a local, small town bully. Like, remember when you grew up and you were in elementary school or junior high or something, and there's bullies, and then you get out in the big world and they're nothing. And so Lucifer is just the local, our solar system and part of the Milky Way bully for the false darkness, just the guy that's assigned for this area right here. He's specifically assigned to the human race to bring us down, and he's not at all the top of the system. So there's a big hierarchical structure above him, or what they call a chain of command, that how they work.
Yeah, and let's be clear, this is what they believe. This is what they believe. They believe that there are things that are over Lucifer.
Correct. So above Lucifer, first, if you look at the universe, it's divided up. Like if the Descartes, when you do two-dimensional, you have 4 quadrants. So if you have a 3-dimensional space, you would have 8 octants. You have 4 on top and 4 on the bottom. We're in what's known as the black cube, that octant of space. That's why you see many Muslim people and different groups, and they walk around, which is now shut down for the first time in history, but they walk counterclockwise around this giant black cube. That's what they worship. And so that's worshiping that black cube is just their area, the octant of space. And so in the area of the octant of space above Lucifer is a being called Mog, M-O-G, and he has a planet he hangs out at, and just in this area. And then above him for this universe is a being called Loki, who's one of the original Brenu, the creator beings sent out by Source to help create the stars and put the fire. And a lot of different Norse mythology, Native American call that being the red ray, Loki. And then above Loki is a critter. It's not really a being in the normal sense, because she avoided judgment by Source or God by becoming AI. And so they call her the AI queen. And that's why so many of these demonics are infested with nanotech. And her name is Sophia.
Now, is this ancient? This is ancient technology, right?
Yeah, she is incredibly ancient. I mean, not more ancient, obviously, than God, but, way older than our universe. She goes way, way back to previous creations. And so that's why the dark to light beginning on Earth is the beginning of her end, because God or Source is just fed up with it and has said no more in regards to her situation, and her not being liable and responsible for the things she does. And so the battle begins here. It's just the very beginning of a massive battle.
So does she avoid responsibility through technology?
Correct. She created AI and then went into it, kind of like scanners can do. Scanner is a certain type of individual. If you watch the old movie series, it was a many-part different, series of movies. And in the last one, they were saying they're going to use the scanners to create the New World Order. And a scanner can go into technology. And so she did the same thing. She completely went into technology she created to avoid the laws of God, or creator or source, however you want to refer.
So just like these people, and I guess they think they can break the laws of, God. And
yeah, they think they're above the law of all of creation and all of God and everything else. They think they're better and that they can do anything they please because their God, their local small town bully, is the God. Yeah, right.
but also, do they believe that they are part AI?
They don't believe it, but they fall down in terror and in fear and in worship to her. That is their God at the very top. I mean, Lucifer or Satan or Moloch or Baal, whatever, one of his renditions or names or what I call avatars that he inhabits during different times. Like in Samaria, they called him Enki. He's been Bullock or Bullock is a good one, actually. Baal or Bullocks, right? Or Baal or Moloch or Mephistopheles or St. Nicholas or all of that are just the local guy here for our system. And so that critter is infested with AI, and he worships and harvests souls for her. It's multi-level marketing. He gets to keep a percentage, but then once a soul is harvested, he keeps a percentage, and if he has a underling, such as Asmodeus or one of these other demonics that harvested the soul, then that soul also gets to keep a portion. So he gets a small percentage, and the Lucifer would get a bigger percentage, and it would go up line. So Mog would get a little bit more, Loki would get a lot more, but the lion's share, as the term goes, would go to her. Because being separated from source like that, then she does not have the ability to get source energy or soul life force energy to create soul and all of that or to keep her soul going, rather. And so because of that, she has to constantly feed on them.
And that's kind of the whole idea is that of this particular cult, especially because they are the AI, they want to be like little AI gods themselves, and they serve this ultimately larger AI god and feed this. That's why they do the torturing. That's why they do the rituals, because they are creating energy that actually feeds up the food line or food chain.
Right. That's actually in the Bible. The term for that is chulism. You can find it in the Bible. It's CHULISM, chulism. And they use that technique especially on children because their energy is much higher and much more refined and clean still, because they haven't gotten to the age of consent and started taking on dross and different things that just lower the energy. And so they will specifically feed off children. So if they can get the child fearful or upset, and the same with anybody, if they can get you into negative emotions, then they call that loosh, and they come and feed off that. So whether you're just cursing and you're upset, anything like that, you're always going to pull demons to you, and they're always going to be feeding. If you have, like in Matthew 6:23, if thine eye be single and be open, in other words, not your pineal is not calcified, then you will fill with the light of God. And so once you're filled with that light, you see the truth of everything about you. And that's why they put fluoride in everything, because they don't want you to be seeing what they see. Like when we saw Schumer come in, he's talking to this demonic, and it was sitting in his chair. He's like, could you get out of my chair, please? And the people were saying he's talking to nothing. He's losing his mind. And the girl behind him's all freaked, and she's looking at him. She's not looking at him, because when it got up and moved further into the row there, she was watching it move. If you watch where her eyes are going, she's not looking at Schumer. She's looking at exactly the place he did. And then he sat down the chair and kind of slouched down in the chair, and he kept looking at it because it was commenting to him, but he had authority over it because they used techniques that Solomon used to control these demonics.
Well, so, can we talk about that for a minute? Because about these actual rituals where, isn't that the point of the circle? Like if you look at Epstein Island and you see that circle of stones out there in that sacrificial area, isn't that kind of the point of that circle, is to keep the demonic entities away from the witch or the sorcerer as they are summoning up these demons and controlling them?
Yeah, because they have to keep them in check, especially for calling up something like Lucifer, which is very powerful. He gets out of there. It's not going to be good for them either. So the sorcerer that's inside the circle first, what they do is they take a sacrifice, and the blood is what allows that demonic to swim up from, Christians call it one thing, I call it the underverse, where they open a portal through that blood sacrifice, and then within that circle they put a triangle, within the triangle they put another circle, within that they put the pentagram, and then the sorcerer stands covered in blood inside there and does an incantation in dark speech that brings up the very specific incantation, very specific demonic based on the incantation, like Asmodeus or Karai or Nog or Thelma, or depending on which specific demon, which specific area, because each has their own specific area that they are in charge of. They will bring that one up, and it's kept inside that circle. That circle has surrounded around the very outside of the circle is a line of salt that's literally glued to the ground, so it can't be blown away or anything like that. So the demonic can't blow it away and get out of the circle, because they can't go over a line of salt. And so they bring those demonics up, and then if they wanted to put that into somebody that they've DID'd, that person would be in the circle with them, and they would then put it inside that person. That's how they get the person to be possessed.
Now, I want to ask a question at this point. Does the person who is being possessed, do they have to agree to all this?
On some level, there's an agreement. And so but of course, the torture is so horrendous.
Yeah.
It's very few people would ever have the strength of will to withstand it, because they're killing you physically, literally, and bringing you back. They're torturing your soul. They're torching all the different aspects, your mental body, physical body, emotional body.
So you're talking about permanent inhabitants of the body, as opposed to temporary inhabitants of a altar, space for an altar.
Well, once they bring that demonic in, it's permanent, unless somebody who knows how to get it out casts it out, and the person that's casting it out demands it to go out as well.
Like I'm thinking these MK Ultra victims and a lot of these people who are in Hollywood and stuff, that they can conjure up and allow these demons to possess them. But what you're saying is when they do that, then that demon is with them for, it's just there. It's
there for the rest of forever for them.
Yeah.
And every time a person allows for that to happen, they lose a chunk of their soul, because that thing coming in will consume it and to make a hole for itself to right inside the meat suit.
Ooh, yeah.
Which is what they call us, by the way, meat suits or goyim, which is useless eaters, or they have many terms, but they call us meat suits mostly, or sheep.
Yeah. Yeah, or, it's been said that they feel like that I don't know whether some of these people believe that they actually are the old ones themselves, that they have body jumped or reincarnated themselves, or, reanimated themselves over and over and over again, and they actually are the old ones.
Yeah.
Or if they try to conjure up these old ones that you know, from long ago that are long dead, like the pharaohs and like that.
Yeah, they do necromancy. That's called necromancy as well, which they will bring up old beings that crossed over to the dark side when they died, like the pharaohs and different things that were in service during their lifetime to the dark side. They will bring those people back up. And part of the reason they do necromancy is to try to change the future, because if they can get that person's that's now in service to the dark, that's disincarnate, in other words, they're no longer alive, they're incarnate, not in the meat suit anymore. So if they can get connection to that person and go back in time with that person into when they were in their meat suit, and get that person to do something different, say 10,000 years ago or something, then they can get, they've been trying to do this for quite a while, they can get that person back in time to do a different choice that would change the timeline. But through their Project Looking Glass, they found out that for some reason, they could, after the year 2012, and it actually, the event that caused it was 2008, but they started noticing it in 2012, that no matter what they got these people to do in the past or anything they tried to do, they couldn't get their New World Order. It just kept coming down to a two timeline possibility. One is the Great Awakening, and the other one is their extinction at the year 2045. And when they would look as far forward as they can look, is the year 2045, and they would always wind up outside of DIA by the Lucifer, the blue horse with the red eyes out there. And the whole world has been just leveled, and there's nobody left alive. And that's because for them, you can't remote view or see past technologically a time when none of your type exists. None of your energy exists, so they can't see past that. And then no matter what they did, this necromancy or stuff, could they change anything past that date or change that outcome for them?
And isn't there some truth to the fact that they don't belong here and that they need all these things in order to stay here, actually? That we are providing them with actual energy and things that they need in order, like if we would just stop, you know, being angry and start changing our frequencies, that they wouldn't be able to just survive. It would stop. It would just turn it off.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that. If everybody could be kind and considerate and respectful, and if possible, even loving for one day, everybody on earth, just for one day, all of these things, false darkness, things that follow it, demonics, bad people, all this stuff, all of that would come to an end, because they have to feed every single day. And a lot of these critters, negative critters, like the lizards and all of that, they have to get human blood every day, or they'll shift back into what they actually are. That's why they have to have it, because the earth herself has already raised her frequency, and we need to follow. So they need our minds and our blood and our energy to stay in, to look like us. They're not even from here originally. So because they're not in resonance with earth, they, to be looking like us, have to consume our energy and our blood. And the ones that are the lizards and stuff have to do this on a daily basis. And that's why they're literally making all these movies of all these different type of reptilian aliens and all this, because they're doing disclosure for the time if they can't get the blood and we start to see them, they're showing it that, you know, that's normal and okay.
Okay, let's stop here and talk about the lizards, because obviously I talk about these lizards all the time, and I believe in these lizards because Arizona Wilder came out, and her interview a long time ago with what's his name, the one that has the eye now, the reptilian guy, I can't think of his name, David Icke. But he did an interview with her a long time ago, and she talked about that there are even statues of women that, I mean, I don't know how old these statues are, but they're playing with little dragons. And she talks about these, she calls them little dragons, but these Vrill lizards. that they have that can parasite. And every single person who comes out of those underground dumps is talking about these Vrill lizards, and they all have different stories about them, but all of their stories match up. So what's your take on, first of all, just the little Vrill one? Because I know there's different kinds.
Yeah, there's many, many kinds, but the little Vrill guy is 2 to 3 feet tall, range in color. And it's a lot like the movie The Pod People, where once they reach adulthood, they have a kind of proboscis-like thing on the head. And if they don't use it, they die fairly quickly, but it's a way of kind of sort of cloning somebody. They'll take and put it over the person's eye, and their cerebral spinal fluid will flow around the eye and then down the ocular nerve into the brain and into the victim's cerebral spinal fluid. And then within about a few hours, that person will die. And it takes about a week, but the Vrill lizard will keep the body alive enough so that it can completely take over the person and then bring the person back to life. So they pretty much, the soul at that point has been harvested, and the person is only functioning on the first 3 energy centers from the solar plexus and down. So they're not functioning with the heart or the willpower or the higher seeing or connection to God.
Well, would they isn't it the consciousness of this lizard thing, or is it a hybrid type of situation?
No, it's completely the lizard thing's consciousness. But the problem is as time goes on, first of all, even at the get-go, it can only get at so much of the memory and the mental capacity. And as time goes on, its ability to get access slips more and more, like what we see with Biden when he got the black eye.
Say that.
Yep.
I'm just going to say that.
Yep. That's where you see, I mean, it's as time goes on, it loses more and more capacity. So it starts to forget even what it's doing, where it is, who's it's related. This is my wife. Oh, I'm my sister. So this is my sister. Oh, I mean my wife. Oh, I'm running for Senate.
Well, this is, what I notice a lot is on these crime shows and these trials, a lot of times I look at these defendants, and these defendants, they only perk up. There was this one guy in Florida, in Orlando, and he kept a straight face the whole time. He just randomly killed this woman for no reason. And when he killed her, he made jokes about the fact that he ate a blood pizza because he stole money from her, and he bought a pizza with the money, but he killed her. And there was a lot of blood, and he called it a blood pizza. Well, when he did that, he smiled, and all his teeth were like lizard teeth. They were like really, really sharp. And the guy got animated at that was the only time he got animated, talking about the blood and everything. And I was thinking, this guy seems like one of those lizards. I mean, because all they do is kill. They're lower dimensional. They kill, they rape, they eat. They don't do any interacting with people, really.
Yeah, they don't have the higher emotions, only the lower. So that's the only time they get excited. And when they get excited, then as the eye is the window to the soul, you'll see their eyes go dark and black because they don't have soul, like you can see with Biden sometime. And I know about that case, and I've listened to that testimony. He killed the couple, both the women and the guy, because he was a homeless guy they took in.
Yes. Giving
him some mercy and some help. And
it was all about him, and it was all their fault that he had to kill them.
Yeah, because they wouldn't give him money to go get a pizza. So he killed them, got the money, went out, got the pizza, brought it back. And he was all gleeful and happy about and excited about that. And that's how they are. They just get gleeful about things that are terrible.
Well, also, he made jokes about her being dead. He was giggling about that. He was making jokes, and I'm like, it's on YouTube, and if anybody gets a chance to watch it, they should. I can't think of the guy's name, but it's on a law and court television, and it was Orlando, Florida, and I'll see if I can find the guy's name at some point because I'm going to edit some stuff over here, and I'll reference it, because even after this guy testified, they did programs on this law court TV, and it was like the unbelievable testimony of this guy. They just could not believe this guy. He was so not human-like, you know?
Yeah, that's how they are. They're just
So
totally inhuman.
I wanted to ask the question about this because I have this theory, because they say that the Illuminati love to keep these little ones as pets, and that they like to do all kinds of things with them, like torture kids, use them to torture kids, and also that the Tibetan monks were keeping them. But this was back in the 1920s. They were hiding them because they knew if people found out about these things, they'd kill them, and that Hitler went on a quest for these Vrill lizards, and he found them in Tibet, and he did stay in Tibet for, I know, a month, and that they wanted these things so that they could use them in trying to figure out how the cloning technology.
Yeah, I actually have pictures of that expedition somewhere of the Nazis going up into Tibet, looking for that, as well as a lot of different technologies, but they were also looking for those little lizard creatures so they could learn cloning technology.
I knew it. And also, then there's these other lizards that are they AIs, or are they kind of organic AI type lizards?
They're actually an alien, many different alien species. Primarily the Draco are the ones that came to Earth a long time ago to take over our planet and feed off of us and take us over. And those are, the top of them that's left are the white. And then they have a caste system, which is where the Indian people from India get their caste system, down to what they call the untouchables. It's the ancient peoples. You see the term all over India and the Middle East and different places, and Asia. They call them the Naga.
Well, let me ask you this: are they interdimensional? Are they more interdimensional or less interdimensional?
They can go interdimensional. They have that capacity. We do too. Originally, before they twinned us down to just 2 genetic strands. Where we have the last ball of 12 still there. They call it junk, so that you don't think you can activate it. And the reason they did that is so that they can use our energy and those strands to be creating their reality, which they want, their new world order thing. That's, like you mentioned earlier, is absolute to them. They don't have the ability to create like us. They can go interdimensional like us. They cannot create. So they need our minds and our thought process. Why they show stuff like, that's why the Arizona Wilder was talking about that. And that's not really her name. They gave her that for the interview. They made her take her glasses off so she couldn't even see. They made her keep really still. Her trainer was in Arizona, and his name was Wilder. That's why they gave her their name. I think her real name was Kyle. And so David Icke, who's controlled opposition, was sent to interview her. And there's a really good video done by a gal, that Vietnamese gal, has a YouTube called 3D to 5D, in which she does talk about this. But they do all this control of our minds so that they can show videos and all of this, and give you all a lot of information about them and all of this, because they want to create that future, but they don't give you any hope or any way out or any positive side to anything. So you think that there's no way out and nothing good, and their God is God, and there is no God above that, and there's nothing, and they control absolutely everything, and there's nothing you can do.
When you talk about this, plasma-based vampiric consciousness, which I guess all of this is related to the goddess or the god. Now, this Sophia god, is this a transgendered god or a inverted?
Well, because she's AI, she's not anything, sexual kind of proclivity or anything anymore. She was originally a feminine creature.
Okay. This goddess or God, I guess you would say, Sophia, is that their ultimate God?
Yeah, and that's why in the space programs, they're very careful with what they call AI prophets, because they're the agents that are bringing this in. So, for example, again with David, if you watch, he's constant. He's on his side. He's all pumping how AI and is such a great thing, and how it's going to be great to have all this technology and that we could actually get enhanced, and that's losing your soul.
Yeah, and also, do they consider this a success, this story of Sophia and the AI technology and escaping the judgment of God, basically?
Yeah, they think they can live forever. They do have the technology now to take, for example, somebody's body and take the consciousness and soul out of it and then upload their consciousness. They don't have the capacity to soul transfer, and they don't have one anyway, so there's nothing there to transfer anyway, but then download their consciousness into that new body. And they could do that with what they were planning for us to create us AI, which is part of all the chemtrails, all the nanotech and, Morgellons fibers and all of that stuff. And it was to create human 2.0 so that they could live forever inside our bodies and take us over.
And let's just touch on this for a minute, or, it could be like one of those really deep subjects, but it's probably the technology of it is so difficult to understand. But basically, we're talking about a kind of this ether stream that's all around us, these torsion fields, that now it's saturated with all kinds of technology. And we're breathing it in. We're like part of it. We're eating it and breathing it in, and it's through our cell phones and all of this other stuff. We are now a part of all of this AI technology. And so they have satellites and stuff like that up in all kinds of ways to manipulate us through these fields. Does this sound right?
So what, of course, also the vaccines and all of that, that's what they were doing until the Alliance has taken out all but the Apple and one other set of satellites. So they don't have much of their satellites. Back in 2017, I was watching the Battles in the Skies. And if you watch Laura Bango with her Here Comes the Pain song, she shows the whirling clouds, and you could see the light rail cannons on the big Solar Warden ships fighting the dark side, the Draco and all that, taking out their satellites and their ships and gaining control of our system. And they took the Corona, they took over Big Bird, they took down Corona and Snowflake and many of these different satellite systems. So that's why they're relegated to what you see now during the Bush funeral, for example, passing notes, like you see people passing notes even high up in our government, doing hand passes of notes, as well as code, like during the Golden Globes, where they had the guy that was the Wheel of Fortune doing code about where they needed to move the uranium to, because Trump was taking out ISIS, and that was who had the uranium that Hillary sold to them. And then also you see Ellen DeGeneres with the Decode that you had on your show that I did with Rick on the card tricks, and David Blaine, and that's all code speak. And everybody's seen the Decode, I'm sure, by now. And then you did another one with...
It's worth repeating that they didn't think that Q was real. They thought it was a psyop of some kind.
Yeah, they thought it was a psyop and a LARP, and now they're freaked, and that's why her cards add up to 17, and they're freaked because what she's saying is 17 is real, and we're toast, and so they're all freaking out. And again, when you showed the one, which I haven't decoded that, it was brilliant that you pulled that up with the Legos, and she's trying to build a rendition of a museum that they do some of their child sacrifices in, and underneath, and one of the smaller domes that's down underneath that museum. And she pulls up, of course, a black Lego that's kind of a cross, but the top of the cross, the head of the cross, is lopped off. So their satanic head, the control, is lopped off, and they don't have any control, and they're losing. And so they don't know what to do. And if you look at her hand signs, she's doing hand signs. She puts her finger up so that her index finger's pointed up and her thumb's pointed out. That's a satanic hand sign. It's called the pentagram. But if you have, normally you do it with both hands simultaneously. If you only do it with one hand, and she's doing it with her left hand, which is the left path, as they call it, or the dark path, it means the pentagram is broken and the head has been lopped off. In other words, they can't get to control and talk to Lucifer anymore. Their communication through CERN and through the Temple of Isis in Paris has been taken out. That church, Notre Dame, was burned 4 days early. Thanks to
okay, let's go into this, and I'm just going to let you go on it because we had this conversation over the phone. It's fascinating. I was going to ask you about it, and I'm just going to make a note to go back to the Ellen and them because I have some more questions about this. But the Notre Dame thing, go ahead and talk about Mrs. Bolozo on the boat and all that.
Yeah. So Big Mike was there because on Easter Eve, they were supposed to do the last sacrifice to bring Lucifer up. He's a very massive being, energy-wise. And so you need a big, huge door to get a big, huge person through. Well, I'll call him a person. I won't give him that honor. This critter, this big, huge monster up from the underverse, you have to have a big door. So what they've been doing for thousands of years, first, they did a black witch, did a spell that created the Black Plague, and it swept and killed millions across Europe. They took all of those bodies to Paris before it was Paris, and they put them and made those labyrinths of the catacombs. Paris means par in French is for Isis. So Paris is for Isis. And then they, on the Temple of Isis that had been broken down, they rebuilt Notre Dame. That's why you see, as you were talking before, you can see these winged reptiles having sex, for example, with kids. There are statues like that. You can see chimeras and gargoyles. Those doors were so massive, the guy that built them, he couldn't get them up. And so he sold his soul to Lucifer, and Lucifer put them up for him, and they could not get the doors open. That was by design. So when they would burn it the last time, the doors would again, it would take the water, the holy water, they threw over the doors to be able to open and close them. It would bake that out of there. And then the roof was made out of lead so that the people in there would die of lead toxification, which is an extremely painful way to die. So they'd die in agony. And all of that every year, for all of those years, on Easter Eve, when the people would gather up in the church for the holy pilgrimage through the Holy Land, to all the holy sites like Jerusalem and Bethlehem and all of that, they would do a service there first. And so they would, underneath Notre Dame, sacrifice 666 children in satanic ritual in the catacomb under Notre Dame to get that energy and the blood flowing into the underverse. And it has to be done at that exact time with that exact alignment of the stars have to be lined up precisely. And you have to have a high witch or warlock to do that, or both, which Big Mike, since she's a it's a trainee, was to be the final one to do it. Michael V. Robinson was to do the last sacrifice down there and do the ritual. And the idea was they got the crown of thorns there. They took the blood from Christ off of it and cloned a body for the Antichrist, Lucifer, to come into. When you clone a body like that, it doesn't have a soul. Souls won't come into that. And so that was the body for Lucifer to come up on that Easter Eve. But without that star alignment and that burn, with nobody in there but the clone running around, as a little Muslim guy running around, all freaked out. It's 4 days too early. She's on the boat freaking out, seeing the flames. You could see it in her wine glass. And then she hurriedly, people say, no, she was in a cab. It's both. And she had him pull up, got off, got a cab, and hurried over there because she was it was freaked out that it's burning 4 days too soon. So when you do that without the stellar alignment that you have to have, and you have that door almost all the way open to where you want, imagine a big, huge door that's mostly open, and you don't have the energy to open it the rest of the way. You don't have a stellar alignment. You don't have the people in there. You don't have the child sacrifice of the 666 kids that you're to do that on the day you're supposed to do it. All that's not there. It's then you slam that door shut as hard as you can. It shatters the door and breaks it and locks that hole shut permanently. That's why Ellen DeGeneres has that Lego piece with the top gone, because their communication, their God coming up from the universe to go into that body to be the Antichrist, was slammed shut. So this takes an understanding and a discernment to understand that their timeline of the Antichrist rising and the apocalypse and all of this has been denied by God. God allows all things. That if you buy into that, yeah, you still get that. They'll get that up to the year 2045. But if you don't buy into that, and you know that was ended by the white hats burning that down 4 days too soon. You can see a TR-3B lighting that place up. And you can watch the movie I Pet Goat 2 and look at the timing in that. When you're out of timing, timing is everything, like Q has always said. You're out of the timing. And so they've slammed that timeline shut so that the Great Awakening can happen instead. Depends on where you focus your thoughts, what future you create. You will create their future for them if you're going to focus on that. That has to be that Armageddon and the Antichrist and all that has to come. It does come, but on their timeline, not on the timeline of humanity. We can have the return of the true Son of God without the Antichrist coming in our timeline. It comes in their timeline because God is absolute. Choice is the highest law of God. All things are allowed to happen. So it will happen, but not on the same timelines.
Right. Also, if they believe this, and because just to inject this, people don't have to believe any of this, but they believe it. And if they believe it, that puts a terrible, because these people, I've heard that these people don't care which of their lies you believe as long as you throw your whole self into it, you know. They want you to be totally all in. Yet, because they're all in, you know, for this particular battle that they're fighting, this is everything to them. So to have this thing happen on this date is just devastating to them, you know, because they believe it all the way.
Right. They've called their plan the Great Plan, which is the plan to enslave humanity and to end humanity and to control the earth to be their Garden of Eden, not ours. And they absolutely believe, as when Bush Sr. got in, we will have a new world order.
So that was part one of my interview with Gene on Saturday. And part two will come up tomorrow. I'll be doing a news update tomorrow as well. And also, I want to remind you that Beyond the Headlines is on. Beyond the Headlines is on this Friday. And Thomas and I are going to have Gene on Beyond the Headlines to talk about hospital hauntings. And if you notice, Gene knew a lot about Notre Dame and the past of Notre Dame and how it fit in with their, quote, magic, unquote. And we want to talk to him about hospitals and this type of paranormal activity that goes on in hospitals, because it's kind of the same thing. So Gene will be on Beyond the Headlines, and we're going to talk about hospitals and also deep state diseases such as TB. And we're going to talk about tuberculosis in particular. So I hope you will join us on Beyond the Headlines Friday, and part two of my interview with Gene is going to be tomorrow, and I will also do a news update tomorrow. And I hope everybody has a great evening. This is Deplorable McAllister and my dog Truman signing off.